Welcome to Watch and Learn. Today on part 3 of Kristina's Alaska quilting journey, we're going to look at making the quilt come together by using the same designs throughout. I'm Kim Sandberg and
Kristina Whitney.
And we are continuing the journey to Alaska on Kristina's amazing quilt. So today we're going to talk about creating continuity throughout the quilt.
Yes.
So how do we do that?
Well, when I did the first part, I used a couple of things like ribbon candy, straight lines, just a couple basic designs. And I'm going to show how I can bring those same designs and continue them throughout the quilt to keep it all cohesive.
Yes.
So it's not all the same, but it's not so overwhelming with so many different designs. So I think I've got like maybe about 5-ish designs that I continue throughout the quilt.
Okay.
So.
Okay, awesome.
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Welcome back to my home and also the Alaska quilt. Today we are going to continue on and we're going to be working in a new section. I call it the tomato section, and we're going to look at that in just a moment. But in addition to that, I also wanted to share some tips and techniques that I use that aren't always shown on camera, so we'll get a little bit of a sneak peek there. But let's go ahead and go into the tomato section and see how we're going to be quilting that. So this is our overall quilt. The section that we're going to be working in today is like this section right here, and it's repeated up in the top quadrants as well and over here. So I'm going to bring in a bigger picture so you can see. I'm going to turn it this way so you can see why we're calling it the tomato. So that's the tomato section right through here. But I'm going to work on the bottom right-hand quadrant, and it'll just be repeated in all 4 of those sections. So this right here is the center of the actual quilt. Okay, so I'm going to just do a brief outline. We're not going to really focus too much on all of the stitch in the ditch. But you will notice that I'm going to repeat a lot of patterns that we've used in the previous sections. So the first one I'm going to do is outline my star. Okay. Now with this star, it's a darker one. I'm wanting that to kind of be a focus. So what I'm going to do is outline this whole section here. So I'm going to do one of the large channel echoes. Just kind of breaking up that space. And you'll notice I left a little bit of a gap there because I do want to come in and I'm going to echo that star just like we did in previous sections. Okay, inside the star also is going to have the repeat of the little section here. And again, this is just a very rough diagram. Nothing is to scale. And I will do the stitch in the ditch through here. So I'm dividing the space down. So I had that big section there. Now I'm focusing just on this section, and that makes it a little bit easier to manage. I'm gonna add in some fill, some little pebbles, so continuing with the pebbles, and we're gonna have pebbles go throughout this whole section in between the 2 different echoes. So this is one thing that I like to do when I'm designing is pick a few designs and just repeat them in different sections. It gives a little continuity throughout the quilting, but it's also a little bit easier to come up with ideas if you don't feel like you're doing something different in every section. And again, that's not the way to do it for every single quilt, but for this one, that's what I'm going to focus on. Okay, So that middle part is done. And I'm gonna continue to break this up. So I'm gonna create a shape here, which is echoed here, or not echoed, but repeated. So I've got those 3 sections, and I'm gonna break them up a little bit more using kind of a chevron type design. And then put some fills in. Again, just repeating some of the previous designs that we used. So we'll repeat that down here and over here. Okay, so we've got those sections done. This stuff out here we've already stitched, so I'm not going to worry about that. But let's go ahead and continue to break this down. Oh, wait, we've got one more section here. Don't forget that guy. Okay, we're good. But now I want to make a melon shape here and over here, as well as up here. Now these 2 are going to continue all the way around the whole center. So I'm going to make a frame, and I'm going to do some ribbon candy. And the ribbon candy will continue up here and along here, and it'll go all the way around the center. Now these sections don't really frame anything, so I'm going to make just a little channel on those and then bring in that feather design again. So beautiful feathers. Okay, and then I would continue the feathers over here as well. Okay, so now I'm down to these 2 sections here. So let's go ahead and create a channel around each of those sections. And I am going to be disregarding a lot of the piecing on here. We're going to cross over the piecing, which is fine. We'll do the same thing on this section. And then I'm going to continue with our star shape. So I'm going to do a ghost one here. And with that echo here, I'm not going to bring the ghost all the way out. So these are going to be a different shape almost. But I will echo. So lots of echoing. And again, okay, so here's where I'm stuck. I have not yet decided what to do for the background fill for these 2 sections. I'm debating on whether I want to go back to the stripes that I did out in these sections, or if I want to stick with the pebbles or do something completely different. So I'm just going to stitch as far as I can, and then maybe I will have some inspiration hit me by the time I get to that section, but we'll see. So we'll finish drawing out this. Do the echo. Okay, we're gonna go stitch. In addition to drawing on the sheet protectors, I also like to use my preview paper so I can make sure what it's going to look like to scale. So you can see I've drawn out part of this. I will also continue in this other part of the tomato up here as well. That gives me kind of an idea of what it's going to actually stitch out like. Next thing I need to think about is how I'm going to do this stitch out. I'm planning on using 3 different feet for this. So I'm going to start out with my surefoot and do some of this ruler work. So get all of these stars and their echoes done. And then in these sections here as well, and the stars in here. And then I'll also do a channel in this melon shape. Then I will probably change to my echo foot and create the echoes around the 3 different sections up in there as well. And then change to my micro foot and do some of the fills. And I might even have to change back to my surefoot again for my stripes. So I'll be changing feet back and forth. The best thing that I decided to do when I started this quilt was to use the monopoly thread. So I don't have to change my thread all the time, I'm just changing my feet. But that's a quick change, and I love using the different feet. So we're going to go ahead and take this away. Bring in some rulers. I've already got my surefoot on as well as my ruler base. And I've got this here. I'm going to start with this star. And I'm just going to stitch in the ditch around it, get it stabilized. Yeah, helps if you get your bottom thread to come up. There we go. Okay, and just a little reminder, I am filming this at home by myself, so I'm trying my best not to get my arm covering everything, so just kind of bear with me as we do this. Just remind you what settings I'm at. I'm on a cruise, and I'm going to drop this down to about a 50, and I'm at 12 stitches per inch. Okay, we're going to stitch along here. Finish that star, and now I think I'm gonna just go ahead and do the 3/4 inch echo channel, because I think that that's going to determine how far I can go on some of my other echoes. So I'm just gonna get those laid down. Okay, here's a little tip. When you are changing your foot, sometimes the needle's down a little bit too low, so you can use the hand wheel to lift up your needle to a higher position, and that will make it easier to get your next foot on, especially especially when you're doing this large echo foot because it's a little bit trickier to get on. So that's tip number 1. The echo that I'm going to do is right around here. I'm going to have to bounce out and continue on, bounce out and continue on. And I'm going to do those 4 sides for this section, then I'll do that section, and then do that section. So we'll find our thread. I've been raving about monopoly, but one of the downsides is that you can't see it very well. And there we go. Okay. So I'm bringing the foot into position. So I'm going to make sure it lines up with either side of that diamond. Bring up that bobbin thread. And bring it back into position here. I'm going to do a couple needle down, needle up. And grab my ruler. And start stitching. And I'm stitching until the edge of my foot's kind of lined up with this next section. I'm kind of just eyeballing it to make the turn. Okay, this I'm going to just go right along that same stitch in the ditch section, stopping when the edge of my foot is on my seam line, and then continuing around. As I was stitching around, I noticed also that there are some sections that when I did the very original stitch in the ditch, I hadn't done these sections because I hadn't planned on separating that. So when I changed back to my surefoot, I'm going to make sure I do some stitch in the ditch in some of these areas that haven't been ditched yet. So let's continue on with the echo foot and then I'll switch to another foot. Tip number 2, sometimes I mess up and I stitch in a section I'm not supposed to. Remember I was talking about how I'm going to stitch in the ditch around here? I want to leave this channel open, so I stopped in the right place here, but I don't know if you can see, but I stitched in this channel. So I'm just going to use my water-soluble marker and I'm going to just draw a circle there to remind me that I need to go back and fix that, like unpick it. Sometimes I put pins in, but with me rolling back and forth, sometimes I forget and I poke myself, so I found that this marker works nice. And at the end of the day, when I'm done with the actual quilting, I can go back and do all of that unpicking and not kind of break up my quilting vibe that I've got going. Anyway, so that's another tip. I'm going to move the fabric back now and do the echo in this section and continue on.
Okay, we're gonna work on this star here. I am gonna do a little tiny bit of marking though. I want to mark where I want my ghost to go here. So I'm just using a regular ruler, finding my halfway point, getting the lid off. Okay, so that's a halfway point. And then I'm gonna bring it down about 1/4 of an inch for the regular ghost, and then I'll echo around it. And the echo will be cut off just a tiny bit, but that's okay. One thing that's really important on this section here is that I remember that I'm not stitching in this one. This one's already done. And I'm going to actually go ahead and do some stitch in the ditch along there while I'm here. Another tip for today is you've seen me do my markings, but the way that I get rid of these markings, since it is a water soluble, is that I have this mister bottle and I just mist over those spots and let it dry. Sometimes the spots don't go away right away, so I'll spray them again. For those stubborn spots, I put a little bit of baking soda in my water and just spritz it with that baking soda water, and they have never come back after that. So that's my little tip for getting rid of the blue marks. This section is as done as it's going to get for right now. I do want to put something in this section in here, just a little background fill, but again, I'm still trying to decide what it is that I'm going to put in there. So I'm going to move on to this section here. So we've got these 4 sections that are coming off of the dark blue star. And what I'm going to do is just take a measuring ruler, and I'm going to put some marks on here. And I've already determined my setting or my marks. So I'm doing 1 1/4, 2 3/4, 4 1/2, and 6 1/2. And those are just kind of random numbers, no rhyme or reason. So that worked really well. And then I put this line here because when I do some of my filling in here, I want to have that separated between that side and that side. And we'll see that in a minute. And I'm going to come over to this next one, and I want to do that same thing, except that I have a little problem that my blue marking utensil, my water soluble, isn't going to show up in this blue section here. So for that part, I'm going to change to a tailor's chalk, and I'm just going to draw a straight line there, put my 4 1/2 and my 6 1/2, and I'm going to cross those over. So that's going to be the marks that I'm going to be aiming for, and then I'll just wipe that off when I'm done. Okay, so that was dividing the space, and I'm going to bring my little stool over. When I do some of this work, I like to be sitting. Sometimes I like to be standing. Sometimes I'm on one leg with one foot on the stool. Just make sure that you're comfortable. But the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in every other one of these spots in here. So I'm going to change my settings, and I'm going to go up to about 250 on cruise. And I'm going to put my stitches per inch up to 13. The first one I'm going to do is I'm going to do some ribbon candy in this first little section here. So I'm going to drop my handles down so it's easier for me to do more of the smaller stitching. And here we go. So one of the problems that I have here is that I can't really see what I'm doing. So this is a time where it's a really good idea to play around with your lights and the setting of your lights. Right now I've got all my lights turned off because of filming, but I'm going to go ahead and turn them all on. And I can see a little bit better, but sometimes having a little bit of a shadow is even better. So I'm going to try with just my number 1 lights on, which are the lights in the throat space. And I'm going to turn those off and try the one around my needle. And I like, for this part, just having the light in my throat space, because that casts a little bit of a shadow and makes it easier for me to see. So ribbon candy, I'm going to leave this one blank. The next one I'm going to do some pebbles in. You could change to manual mode if you wanted to on these. I'm trying to make my pebbles a little bit bigger.
Okay, the last section is going to be just some squiggles. And we did something similar to it at the very beginning. We did more of a scribble stitch. This is going to be a little bit more open and just squiggling up and down. So here we go. Now I would take my squirt bottle, get rid of my blue marks, and finish the other 3 sides. I'm also going to come in and do my echo around this blue star and do the fill in here, and then also repeat what I did in this section, and then I will be done with my tomatoes. I put my microfoot on, and now I'm going to do the background fill around this star here, and I'm going to do the pebbles. But I'm going to do a little bit larger, so I'm going to do my settings on cruise at a speed of 225 or 250, and I'm doing 13 stitches per inch in this part, so just doing a little tie off. You'll notice I do have one handlebar already down. Usually I would do both down, but it blocks the camera view, so we're going to go one-handed today. And I like having this down because then I can kind of rest my arms, and I'm sitting down also, so that gives me a little bit more control as I'm doing this part of the stitching. So I'm just going to stitch around. And if I were doing little tiny pebbles, I would do this in manual, but I'm trying to keep them about maybe dime size. And I like to do them with a variety of sizes and shapes. That way I don't have to worry about making them all the same, and they can just fit in where they go. gonna fill in these melon shapes. I've already done the echo quilting on the inside, the 1/4 inch. So now I'm gonna fill it in with the feathers. Now here's the little tip. I always have a garbage can of some sort just laying around when I'm doing custom quilting because I do have lots of thread to cut, so I just keep it handy. So let's continue on here. There's the feather. I've got one more section I'm gonna do. It's these melons up here with the ribbon candy. I've gotten the tomato done in all 4 quadrants. The only stuff that's left is the center of the quilt. You'll notice that I have a bunch of stuff all over my quilt top. I always tell people don't put stuff in your quilting area, but look what I do. So this is the reality of things. I've got all my tools, my rulers, garbage, my drawing, and I want to point out over here in this star that I've got lots of blue circles here of stuff I have to unpick. When I did my first one, I did my echo first and then did the channel up to the echo, but I forgot what I had done, so I didn't do it the same way the second time. So now I get to unpick it. With that being said, that's a little tip of the day. When you are quilting, go ahead and take pictures of things, especially things that are going to be repeated, like borders, because that way when you get to the other end and you can't see what was originally quilted, you have that picture to go by for reference. So that's a little tip for you. Another tip that I wanted to point out, let's go over here to my thread. So I'm working with that monopoly on a cone, and a lot of times when you have a fine thread, it tends to pop out of your thread mast. So I just took a little piece of batting and stuffed it in there, and that's holding the thread in place. So that's been a great benefit for me. Okay, so I only have the center left on the quilt. I'm getting really excited because I can see the stitching as I'm rolling up the quilt, and we're getting so close, but I think I am going to call it a day. So I got all of the tomato section quilted, except for one part.
Yeah.
And you know, I just want to let people know that it is okay. Mm-hmm. If there is a section that you just don't know what to do with, just leave it be for the time. And then later on, you might get that inspiration and be able to go back and finish it. So hopefully I'll get that inspiration and I'll be able to finish my quilt.
So stay tuned for part 4, and we'll see what we do at the end.
Exactly. If you want to go back and watch any of the previous episodes, look for parts 1 and 2. This is part 3, and part 4 will be coming out soon. If you would like to have one of your quilts featured at the end of one of our videos, be sure to use that hashtag Handi Quilter anytime you post a picture of your quilts on social media. Be sure to give us a like and subscribe, and have fun quilting.
So I want to thank everybody that made comments on our video last week to win this cute panel. And I'm here to announce that the winner is @DonnaCarroll7483. So congratulations, Donna. What you need to do now is send an email to hqevents@handiquilter.com and let us know your shipping information. And we'll need to receive that by Monday, February 26th. So congratulations, Donna.